Okay, this is chapter 4 review on rational numbers. So what you need to know how to do for your summative is you need to be able to convert your decimal to fractions, and you should also be able to convert fractions to decimals. Also, you need to be able to add, subtract, multiply, divide, fractions, and compare fractions, which one's greater, less than. Also, you have to do all of that also with mixed numbers. Last, you need to make sure that you're able to use dimensional analysis. You should be able to show me how to convert maybe inches into centimeters, centimeters into inches with dimensional analysis. All right, so let's go to the first example. So here I have negative 1/14 minus 3/14. Now, they have a common denominator. When you're adding and subtracting, the denominators need to be the same. When you're multiplying and dividing, the denominators do not need to be the same. So in this case, since we are subtracting, we do need to have the same denominator, which we do. So all I have to do is, on this one, I have the same denominator. So I have a negative 1 minus 3, right? So I have negative 1 minus 3 over 14. So that would be a negative 4/14. Okay? And that can simplify by dividing by 2 on the top and 2 on the bottom. So I get negative 2 over 7, and that would be my answer. Now, you don't need to write it this way if you don't want to. You can go straight to this one here. Okay? This next one is, I have 5 on the bottom on my denominator and 7 as a denominator. So I need to get the same denominator. So I would multiply on this side. I would look at whatever this number is and multiply by that number over the same number, because this is just one whole. So 7 over 7 is one whole. So I don't have to, so I'm not changing my fraction at all. So then I have 7 times a negative 2 over 7 times 5. Minus, and then I want to change my fraction over here so I have the same denominator, which I'm getting right here is 35. So I'd multiply this one by 5 over 5. Okay, so then I have 3 times 5 over 7 times 5. All right, so what is 7 times a negative 2? That's just negative 14 over 35. Minus 3 times 5, which is 15 over 35. So now my denominators are the same. I have common denominators, so now I can just look at the top. So I have negative 14 minus 15 over 35. So a negative 14 minus 15 would be a negative 29 over 35. And that would be, I can't simplify that, so that is my final answer for that one. Next question. In this case, I see that my denominators are the same, so I do not need to change my denominators. Okay, but I have a whole number. So this is 5 and 1/14 minus 3/14. So there's two ways that you can do this. I'm going to change it to an improper fraction, because this will always work, and it's just fine to do it. So I need to figure out how many 14th pieces do I have. I have 5 wholes, and they're divided into 14. So I need to multiply 5 times 14. So I'm going to do that over here. So that's 20. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 2 more is 7. So I have 70. Plus I have this one that I need to add. So I have 70 plus 1 is 71/14. And then I have to subtract 3/14. So then now I just do 71 minus 3 would give me 68/14. And I can simplify that. So I could divide the bottom by 2 and the top by 2. So then I would get 7 on the bottom, and then I would get 34 on the top. How many times does 7 go into 34? If you want, you can do long division, but you don't have to just help you see it better. So 7 goes into 34 4 times. I would put 28, so 7 times 4 is 28. And then that would be a 6. And then I would bring down that would be my remainder. I don't need to find the decimal, sorry. And so this would be 6 out of 7. So it would be 4 6/7 is my final answer. So another way to do it is to do it by regrouping. So I would just rewrite 5 1/14 minus 3/14. It's kind of like this is your ones place, and this is your parts, right? Or your hundredths place. Okay, that's part of your fraction, right? Oops, not 3/4, 3/14. Okay, so this 5 is equal to so I have 1/14 and I have to subtract 3/14. I can't do that. So I have to get a whole here. So how many? It would be 4 wholes plus 14/14, right? Is 5, right? And then I have plus the 1/14. So how many 14ths is that? I have 4 15/14. So now I need to subtract this 3/14 from the 4 15/14. So minus 3/14. So 15 minus 3 is 12/14. And 4 minus, there's no holes there, so it's just going to be 4 12/14. However, it's not simplified, so I would just need to divide by 2. Okay, so when I divide by 2, I would get 4 6/7, which is the same answer as the other one over here. Okay, so there's 2 different ways. You can do it by finding the improper fractions. So make them all improper, which is probably the easiest. That's probably what I would do, so I don't make a mistake. Or you can switch it so you can regroup. So this right here is 5, and then plus the 14th here, okay? So let's look at this next problem, number 4. So I have 3 2/5 minus 5 3/7. So I'm going to go ahead and make them improper by multiplying and then adding. So 5 times 3 is 15, plus 2 more is 17/5. Okay? And that is a positive, and then I'm going to subtract this one here. So I need to multiply and then add. So 7 times 5 is 35, plus 3 more is 38. So I have 38/7. Now I need to get common denominator since I am subtracting. So I'd multiply this one by 7/7. And this one by 5/5. So I can get a common denominator of 35. So I'd have 35 on the bottom here, minus, and then 35 on the bottom here. And then I would have to figure out what is 17 times 7. It's 49. 7 plus 4 more is 11, so it's 119. And then 38 times 5. It's 40, 15, 19, 190. All right, so now I see I have 119/35 minus 190 35ths. So this I'm subtracting more than I have originally, which means my answer is going to be negative. I have more negatives here. So I'm going to just do in my head the absolute value of 190 minus 119. Which is 71. So it'd be, my answer would be negative 71 35ths. Okay, let's go on to the next one. So when we divide fractions, we're actually keeping the same term first, so negative 1/6, but we switch to multiplication and we take the reciprocal of the second term, which would be negative 12/5. Okay, so now I can simplify if I have anything on the top. So this 12 is 6 times 2, and I'm going to say that it's negative 2. Doesn't really matter, or you can say it's times the negative 1. But since I'm getting rid of the 6's, I'm going to subtract the 6, or cross off the 6, because 6 divided by 6 is 1. Okay? And then I have what on the top? I have a negative 2 times a negative 1. So I'm going to do negative 1 times negative 2 over, and this is 1 times 5. So then I get a negative times a negative is a positive, so I get 2 over 5. Or what you could do is go ahead, instead of doing that second step, so I have negative 1/6 times negative 12/5, you can just multiply straight across. So negative 1 times negative 12 over 6 times 5. So you get 12/30, and then you can simplify by dividing by 6 on the top and 6 on the bottom. So here we're dividing 6 over 6 at the end, but before we did it at the beginning. So then you have 2 over 5. So it's 2/5. All right, let's look at this next one. So here I see a mixed number, so I'm going to go ahead and change that into a improper fraction. Don't look at the negative. That just means that the whole number is negative. So put the negative in after you figure out the improper fraction. So 5 times 3 is 15, plus 2 more is 17. So I have 17 over 5, and it's going to be negative because I'm getting that negative right here. Okay. And then divided by, I'm going to go ahead and change that to multiplication and take my reciprocal. So I flip it. So I put the 2 on the top and the 1 on the bottom. So 17 times 2 is 34, but I have a negative times a positive, so it'd be a negative 34. And then 5 times 1 is just 5. So how many times does 5 go into 34? That is 6 times. So if you wanted to, you could do division if you wanted to show that. So 6, sorry, that should be a 5. So 5 times 6 is 30. You would have 4 left over, so then you would have 4/5. Okay? And then my answer is negative, so it would be negative 6 and 4/5. All right, so write 1/6 of this decimal. So how to do this is just in and out. And what I mean by that is it's in the house or in the box, right? And then 6 is on the outside. 6 can't go into 1, so I put a 0 here. So 6 goes into 10 one time. I put the 6 here, subtract, I get 4, bring down the 0. 6 goes into 40, 6 times. And then I get 36, and I get 4. And that is going to be repeating. So my decimal, because I would just get another 0 here, I get 40, and I keep on getting 6's. So then my decimal, so 1/6 equals 0.16, and the 6 is repeating. All right, to compare. So to compare these two, you need to get common denominators. They are not common denominators. So I'm looking at the denominator, and I think that I would probably multiply this by 50 over 50. And then this one by 60 over 60. Okay, I'm sure there's another least common denominator that you could probably figure out. So 60 times 50, right? So I know that 6 times 5 is 30, but 60 times 50 would be 3,000. So I have 3,000 on the bottom. And then 50 times 9, I know 9 times 5 is 45. And then I put a 0. And then this one, I would still have 3,000. And then 5 times 6 is 30. And then I would add a 0. So which one is greater? The 9/60th. So how you would compare, this is not your answer here. You would have to do 9/60th is greater than 5/50th. And that would be your answer. Okay, write 0.4 in simplest terms. Well, this is in the tenths place, so that means 4 tenths. And then I would just need to simplify by dividing by 2 on the top and 2 on the bottom. So I get 2/5 would be my simplest form as a fraction. This is my last one. So I need to figure out 20 meters and how many feet. Okay, so the first thing that I need to figure out is how many meters or feet are equal to each other. So I know that 1 foot, and we get this off the chart, is equal to 0.3 meters. So this is your conversion, all right? So this is what we start with is 20 meters. So I'm going to put 20m, and we multiply it by our conversion. So our conversion is here. So I have 1 foot equals 0.3 meters. I want to get rid of my meters. So I put that the opposite of what I want to get rid of. And what I want is here. Okay, this is what I start with is 20 meters. What I want is feet. Okay, so I put the feet here. Feet should go, then whatever you want needs to go on the top. So I put feet there. Okay. So now my conversion is I look up at the top and I have feet and meters. So it says 1 foot. So here I put 1 foot. Whatever the feet is that it says in your chart is where you put the number. Okay. So I'm going to put the 1 here. And then the 0.3 meters here. Now, as dimensional analysis, now I need to cross off my meters. So when I cross them off, because it's meters divided by meters, those will go away. The meters will go away, and I'm left with feet, and that's why I have feet as my answer. So now I just have 20, and then in this case, it's divided by 0.3. So 20 divided by 0.3. When you divide by a decimal on the outside, you need to move it over to the right. So 3 goes into 26 times. That's 18. I get 20 again. So 3 goes into 26 times. I'm going to put my decimal here. I bring down my 0. Oops, subtract. Bring down 18. My bad. And I bring down my 0, and I would have 18 again, and it'd keep on repeating. So my approximate amount would be 66.6, and then feet repeating, and what that means is 20 meters is about 66.6 meters. All right, so that is the end of the review. If you have any questions, please come see me at lunchtime. All right, I'll talk to you guys later, and good luck on your test.